Good morning. I want to welcome everybody this morning. We appreciate you taking time out of your days to attend this PAC training class with us. It should be right at about 2 hours. It's pretty much our normal time. What we're going to plan, the plans are, everybody is muted right now. We will unmute at the end. That way we can get through the presentation fairly quickly. We should have a good 30, 45 minutes at the end for any questions and answers. So if you have any questions, go ahead and write those down during the presentation, and we will get those answered toward the end. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm Bruce Herring. I'm the executive director for KCSA, and Susan Sickle, the assistant executive director, is with me as well. She and I are going to put the presentation on today. Is everybody able to see the PowerPoint? Okay, thank you. Has everybody got their notebooks?
Everybody should have the notebook.
Okay.
I was going to ask if they didn't, they can email
Yeah.
but
Everybody should have their notebooks. Those new folks should have picked them up by now. If you do not have one, just shoot Ilya an email and we'll get that to you next week. She is out on vacation this week, and we'll get that to you next week if you need one. So I always get the fun part of the presentation, talk about the governing documents. So little boring in some cases, a lot of repetition between those. So I'll go through these. We'll talk about the main three, and these are KCSA, and you guys also all have a supplemental declaration as well that applies to your specific parcel. So we've got three governing bodies within Kings Mill. It's a declaration, the bylaws, and your articles of incorporation. Basically, these documents define the association and the legal backbone for the association as well. When you purchase your home in Kings Mill, the deed, the title to your lot basically is a contract with KCSA for those responsibilities within it and any fees that are associated with that as well. Just as I mentioned, the owners in the association, it's a covenant requirement of membership, and it's a basic structure that forms KCSA. It's not moving. All right, the declaration defines the common areas and limited common areas of KCSA, the covenant to pay assessments, the architectural control, which is handled with your EPB policies and procedures, use restrictions, your easements, period of developer control, and KCSA is still under developer control until a certain number of homeowners are present in the community, and it'll be a little while before anything changes. And it also gives the board of directors the ability to adapt rules and regulations for all homeowners. I'm trying to let people in at the same time. And then, as we mentioned, the supplemental declaration, they extend the declaration provisions over into the parcels. Some of them will contain your covenants, your restrictions, other provisions that are applicable just to your respective parcel. A prime example, I'll just use River's Edge as an example. We recently put a rental restriction in place at River's Edge, and that has been amended into their supplemental declaration and is now basically a valid rental restriction only for River's Edge at this time. We have a few others that are talking about it, so those will be addendums to your supplemental declarations as well. Then also, as we mentioned earlier, it defines your supplementals define limited common areas within your parcel itself. There it is. Can't find the arrow. Your articles of incorporation are the lowest ranking of them all, and you'd think it would be just the opposite, because basically this is the corporate charter for the association through the State Corporation Commission. It is a requirement annually. It's basically we are incorporated through the state of Virginia. We are a not-for-profit. We are not a nonprofit. This basically defines our classes of membership, our A, B, and our C members, and then it also is an indemnification clause for our boards of directors as well. Your bylaws, the bylaws are a lot of information on quorum requirements, your meeting notice requirements, what positions are the responsibility of the association to carry your president, your vice president, your treasurer, your secretary. And it also gives the authority for the board of directors to appoint committees, advisory committees, just as each of you are as a PAC member. Talk a little bit about the EPB environment, their policies and procedures. The declaration also gives the board that authority. It gives the EPB the authority to provide rules, regulations, policies, and procedures for board approval. Basically, as I'm sure all of you know, that any modification that is done to the exterior of your home, no matter what it is, unless it's a complete match of what you're taking away and putting back in, everything requires an approval. And our EPB, the EPB stays very busy 2 times a month when they're reviewing applications. And as I mentioned earlier, the authority is given to the board of directors to develop rules and regulations that are for all to adhere to. Wow, that was quick. I got done my portion very early. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Susan Sickle. She will talk a little bit more specifically about that notebook that you guys have.
Okay, good morning, everybody. As Bruce said earlier, if you don't have a notebook, you're not referencing one right now in front of you, get a hold of Elia and I can give you her email address if you don't already know at the end of the presentation. We'll get you a notebook, but right now everything's going to be on the screen, so no worries. Just write down your questions and at the end we can go over any questions that y'all have regarding this. This is a lot of material. I'm not going to go through 100% of that notebook. You can thumb through it and read everything at your leisure, but I'm just going to hit some hot spots in it. So let me go to the next screen. Okay, so what is included in your notebook? You've got your charter, you've got your procedures, the declaration specific to your parcel, your statement of interest, which all of y'all would have filled out prior to getting on your advisory committee, these how to properly write your minutes, or the form that you would need to use as a template in writing your minutes. You have your timelines for annual meetings, your budgets, contracting guidelines, your budget specific to your parcel. And then of course we have copies of the EPB policy and procedures and the rules and regulations. Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to try and enable something for Bruce. I think it's up here. One. Okay. Is that right? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Next, what's also included is a parcel information sheet, the parcel matrix. That one has not been approved as of right now. We are trying to work on getting that. What that is it tells the responsibility of who does what in your parcel. So the limited common area is maintained by the parcel, everyone in the parcel. So that's through your dues. Then you have homeowner's responsibility, And then you have what's actually association, meaning common area, which would be KCSA's responsibility. So it's a guideline. It's a quick guideline. It's very helpful once y'all get it. I'm hoping to have that completed this year. So everybody will know in writing who's responsible for what. Okay, now let's get to the meat of everything. Okay, your charter. What is your charter? It establishes your parcel advisory committee. They're living documents, so they can be amended by the board of directors at any time. And it defines the relationship between your parcel committee and the board of directors. The committee is made up of 3 to 9 members. If you need more, you can always go to the board of directors to ask for more members, but the majority have 3 to 9. What's required on your committee as far as the position would be a chair, a vice chair, and secretary. Now, most of the parcels have other positions, and you can create a position to what is needed in your parcel. Some people have a buildings and grounds. Not everybody does, because not everybody has buildings as a limited common, or they don't have a painting cycle or repair cycle or anything like that. So the positions are going to be as needed for your parcel, but the required ones to be filled is the chair, vice chair, and secretary. And I think at the end of the year, when the board approves your parcel committee, we're stressing, hey, I need to know who's going to be the chair, vice chair, and secretary. We don't have to know everybody else, but we need to know those as far as positions. Your terms, when you're approved and start the committee, it's a 2-year term, and you can serve 3 consecutive terms. So that would be 6 years on that PAC. It can be extended, but only with board of director approval. And we've done that in the past, but we're hoping to get new people in there just so they can help serve in their parcel. The terms begin January 1st, so it's calendar year. Vacancies, if there's a vacancy, they can be filled by the board with recommendation from the parcel committee. So we don't have to put that out to vote to your members. If we have somebody resign or they have to leave for whatever reason, if somebody wants to step in that position, they'll follow the same term as the person that was resigning or leaving, but it doesn't have to go to the members for their preference. It can be just a recommendation from the parcel committee. And we like to have staggered terms. So if you have a parcel committee of 5, we'd like 3 to go off at one time and 2, just so we have some members staying on that know what's going on at that time, and you're not training a whole new committee. The nomination, May of each year, May-June timeframe, we will put to the board of directors how many positions we think we need to fill for the following year. So if you have 7 members and you think you'd like to add another position and you need 8, we would just go to the board of directors for them to approve the number of positions or members for the next year. Around July 15th, the KCSA will send out statement of interest forms to every homeowner in your parcel. That way, if they want to serve on the committee and they're skeptical of approaching one of the parcel committee members, they send it right back to the KCSA and we can add it to the list of interested candidates for your parcel. The nominating committee is appointed at the same time if needed. We don't always need that. If you have 2 positions that you need to fill and we don't get any statement of interest back, then yes, you need to form a nominating committee so that you can go out and solicit for interest. if we get the interest back, and there's not really a need for a nominating committee on, at that time. They need to be, the SOIs need to be returned 30 days prior to the annual meeting to the KCSA. I'm going to stop there because I think there's another procedure on another page on what we do with those SOIs once they're returned. The selection 10 days prior to the annual meeting, notice is sent to all the lot owners. With that is a preference form. This is where I'm at. And anybody that turned in an SOI that's eligible, to be eligible to serve on the PAC, you need to be in good standings and not have any legal or conflict with the, or violations or anything like that with the KCSA. Once that's cleared, then we can put your name on a preference form, which will go out with the annual meeting notice in the fall for the residents to send back with their preference on who they would like to represent them on the parcel committee. Each lot owner is entitled to one preference form. So you only get, it's not, we don't want to call it a vote. We want to call it a preference, but you get one of those, each lot. So it's not husband and wife each get one, it's one per home. KCSA will collect all the preference forms. They can be, they're usually sent in prior to the annual meeting, but they can also be given to us at the annual meeting. And then we will tally them up and get back with the PAC and let them know what preferences were selected. The board, the board will, usually our annual meetings are in September, October time. In the November Board of Directors meeting, that's when we will submit the names for the following year roster of members to serve on the PAC in the November meeting. So the Board of Directors will approve them in November. And then we will ask by the December meeting that the parcels, if they don't already have a PAC meeting scheduled, to schedule a special meeting just to coordinate the positions, who's going to serve what positions, because the Board of Directors will need a list of those names and positions, especially the chair, vice chair, and secretary at the December meeting. So come January 1, everybody's official, and we can start with our new parcel committee for that year. Committee responsibilities. I'm not going to go through all the positions, but the big positions are, but budget's a big position. They're all have their own responsibilities, but budget's one that's big. Between August and September 15th, the PAC will coordinate with the KCSA to develop your budget. The draft budget is presented to the parcel members at the annual meeting. And then the budget and finance, once the annual meeting, everybody has inputted, okay? And they can input, but it doesn't have to be changed. The PAC creates the budget, not the members. So once that PAC puts it together and it's presented at the annual meeting, you're going to have some responses, and you can either take them into consideration or you take them all into consideration, but that doesn't mean you have to change the budget to reflect what they want. If you have a reason why you need this budget the way it is, then you can leave it like that. Remember, the PAC creates the budget, not staff here. The PAC creates it and presents it to the Budget and Finance Committee. And then once it's presented to them, they will review it. They will make any recommendations, or they will approve it as is. And once that happens, in November board meeting, it'll go for approval at the Board of Directors.
Susan, one thing to remember also is there are liaisons on the Budget and Finance Committee that assist with each of the parcels, just as we do with board members. So the Budget and Finance is there to help in any way necessary.
Yep. Okay, so I'm sure y'all have questions about that, so just write them down, and at the end, we will review any of those budget questions. All right, next I want to, let me turn my page. I want to go over EPB. Bruce had talked about EPB, what's that any exterior change, modification, anything that you're doing outside of the residence that would affect anybody around you. I'm not talking seasonal flowers. I'm talking any other kind of change. If you're changing your windows, you're changing material, you're changing your windows, but they look exactly the same, but you're changing the material. It's not like for like, so therefore you need an EPB application. So any exterior change, modification, improvement that there's a change with will require EPB approval. The PAC is once the EPB receives an application from your parcel, the EPB coordinator will send out that application to the parcel committee and lots that will be affected by this change. Once the parcel committee gets the application, they're required to provide comments or recommendations back to the EPB within 10 days of receiving that application, asking for any comments or recommendations. Not always do we get everybody to respond, but there's some really important applications that we will go back and ask, we really need a response to this because this might set a precedent in your parcel. If it's something little like just putting on a storm door and we don't get 100% of comments back, we don't ask a second time. But if it's something that's might be precedent setting, we will ask till we get everybody's comments. We might bug you just to get that. But again, 10 days, we need a response. We are required, the KCSA is required, according to our governing documents, to respond to an application within 30 days of its submittal. So if we pass that 30 days and they don't get a response, if it's not seen by the EPB and there's not a response of either approved with modifications or denied, then it's assumed approved. Regardless, we only have 30 days. So getting back responses from the PAC is really important because sometimes we might have to go ahead and see that application because we're within that 30 days and we're obligated to make a decision on that. We are not bound to PAC recommendations. We will take them into consideration, but they're not bound to go with that recommendation. We'll copy the PAC on any decision. Usually within 10 days, you'll get a notification on how the EPB decided on the particular application you would have commented on. Committee responsibilities, parcel matters. The committee is there to advise the board of any parcel matters that really just keep them up to date of what's going on in your parcel, especially if you have some type of, I don't want to say problem or concern, that's the board. Let the board know. The more the board knows, the better off we are. Everything just needs to be transparent. Let's see, participate. All right, so I don't want to get that right now. Association matters, advise board of directors of any matters of interest to the parcel and should make reasonable effort to reflect the views of the majority of the parcel. Make the board aware of method used to determine consensus. The parcel information sheet, PAC shall update annually for board approval. Your PAC meetings, you need at least have one every quarter. You're required to. The notice is provided. Usually we send it out, I believe the number of days is 10 days prior to for an annual meeting or semi-annual meeting, because we actually do mailings for that. But your PAC meetings, we want to give at least 3 days prior to the meeting to call the PAC meeting. We try to every January timeframe, we send out a schedule of the whole year of what the PAC meetings are, the annual meeting and the semi-annual meeting, what dates those are. But sometimes we have to call a special meeting, and if we do, we'd like to do it at least 3 days, at least give the homeowners, because all the meetings are open. So anybody can attend it in your parcel. So we need to give at least 3 days so they can put it on their schedule if need be. Meetings need to be held in a KCSA approved location, and not in a private residence, not at a restaurant, nothing like that. It needs to be at a KCSA approved location. Now, it's kind of hard right now with us not having the rec centers open, but we are doing Zoom through the KCSA's accounts. Of course, you're doing it in your home or wherever, but when we start meeting again, it needs to be at a KCSA approved location, i.e. any of the rec centers, even the pavilion, even though it's not, it's an approved location, or the conference center here at the KCSA.
And we will probably continue to encourage Zoom. I think our participant numbers have been much higher. We've heard some good stuff from some of the PACs. One thing, originally back a year ago, General Assembly passed a provision allowing for these virtual meetings with everything going on. We got word yesterday that they have made that a permanent law. So Zoom meetings going forward may continue. So I would potentially see more and more of those in person and by Zoom.
Okay, at your PAC meetings, the majority of PAC shall constitute a quorum. So once you're past the majority, you can proceed. If somebody's going to be late, but you have your quorum, you can go ahead and proceed if you'd like. The minutes for that meeting shall be submitted to KCSA within 45 days of your meeting. This is something that doesn't always happen, and we're having to follow up with the secretary asking for these. And the reason that we ask for those minutes, it's so we know what's going on, but normally we know before the minutes come out, but the board of directors gets copies of these minutes. So they know also what's going on outside of each board meeting when the representative for that PAC speaks. There might be some things that they don't talk about at the board meeting, and it's in their minutes. So we want to keep the board of directors fully informed of what's happening in your parcel from small to large. Okay. The PACs can only conduct a closed executive session with prior board of directors approval. Executive sessions, I don't know if we've ever had one in the PACs. If we have, it's been so little that I don't even remember. Those are things. The executive session again is closed, so no other member can attend. It's just the PAC. But you have to be talking about certain things in order to even call an executive session. And it's very rare that a PAC would need an executive session. And if you did, you'd have to get board of directors approval prior to that. Let's see. Meetings of the members. This is the annual meeting that I was talking about, usually in the fall. That when the meeting is called, only the president of the board of directors can call that meeting. So when we send out the agenda and the actual meeting notice, it's going to be called from the president of the board. So it's not going to be by the parcel chair. It's going to be the president of the board of directors. The meeting schedule of meetings shall be approved by the board of directors in January and published in the bulletin. This is where I was saying that usually in January, we have not just the annual meeting, but we have all the PAC meetings information in the bulletin. On an annual meeting, 10% or more of the owners shall constitute a quorum. So it's a little different from a PAC meeting. This is an annual meeting, so we need at least 10% either by, well, we don't even do proxies for that. So we would need 10% in person to even constitute a quorum to conduct business. It can be just an informational meeting if you don't get that 10%. But if you're going to do any voting, there has to be at least 10% of your community there. We have to have at least one annual meeting. Some of the parcels have, we call the first one the semi-annual, usually in the spring. It's a semi-annual meeting. We call it semi-annual and the annual in the fall. The semi-annual is more of an informational meeting. The annual meeting will present, the biggest thing is your budget for the next year. And anything else in that budget that needs to be voted on to be able to do, if you want to get the members to vote on whatever maintenance or schedule was in that budget. Again, they need to be at a KCSA approved location and not a private residence. Why do we do budgets? Well, the supplemental declaration actually defines the limited common area and who is responsible for maintaining the limited common area, which is the parcel committee, which is the association, but it's limited to the parcel. So you collect fees in your parcel to cover the limited common area that's defined in your declaration and your plat. And it also defines not only just the certain maintenance, but it defines the insurance coverage. So that's another thing that is collected through your dues on most of the parcels. A couple of these parcels are single family parcels, so we don't have any insurance for them, but there's 8 of them that do. Parts of the budget, you've got your revenues, which would be your assessment. Then you have your expenses, which is just your regular operating expenses, your termite warranty, your landscape, your admin fees, anything else that your particular parcel does. You have some landscape maintenance, you have some tree work, you have, I think y'all understand. You might have some special event expenses, things like that. Then you have your reserve funds. It's necessary to maintain adequate balances for your capital repair and replacements. We'll go over that in just a minute. But partially the budget, the operating fund is your non-capital expenses. Just like I said, your landscaping, your termite warranty, your staining, your admin, your miscellaneous. Then you have your OER reserve. This reserve is for let me back up. You're required to have 1/12 of your operating expenses in your OER at all times. Okay. then you can, and that's to cover any shortfalls in your revenues or overruns in your expenses. But most parcels have more than the 1/12. And I don't know where I want to go from here, but
Well, and one thing with the OER to remember also, the budget and finance is, of course, in the process of establishing limits, or not limits, but the minimum requirements. We've been talking about that for a little while. But one thing also in regards to that income shortfall, we have really and truly looked at those very hard over the last year or two. We prefer that it doesn't get used, but in some situations, it may have to be. And then, like I said, the Budget and Finance Committee are here to work and help as much as possible.
okay. So as far as the OER, if you have some storm cleanup and, we have a huge storm that comes through and you're close to your minimum required, your 1/12, and we have a big storm come through and it puts you below your 1/12. If you're less than 50% to replenish it, you only have to, or if you're less than 50% of the 1/12, then you have to make that back up the next year. But if you are more than 50%, you've got 2 years to replenish your OER. Hope that makes sense. So you can either have 1 year to replenish it or 2 years, depending on how low you went in your OER. Your MM&R, these are for your capital improvements and replacements of your assets. The MM&R balance, I guess required balance, is dictated by your reserve study. Each parcel has a reserve study, and it tells you what your minimum should be that year, how your replacement, what years your replacement will be for your certain assets, and how much it's going to cost to replace that. So really, your M&R is strictly by the reserve study that's performed through the KCSA for your parcel. And it's a requirement to have that reserve study. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And right now we've been doing them every 3 to 5 years. And I think we're going to do updates on them annually. And
Susan, let me jump in real quick on the MM&R real quick. As you guys know, we just went through the process last year, and we made a change in the reserve study company to design management. And one thing that design management has done is they've given us a inventory spreadsheet. We have KCSAs now. We're working to get each of the parcels. And what's going to happen with each of those is everyone is going to be required to keep up with that. If things aren't being done, we need to project the next year that it's going to be done. But once we get those, we'll sit down with the finance folks in each of the parcels and just go over what it is and what the expectations are for that.
I do want to point out the bottom bullet there where the MM&R cannot be used to offset shortages in your operating or OER. It's strictly for your major maintenance and repairs of your assets. These are like total replacements, not the money. Once it's down in the MM&R, you cannot move it to OER or your operating. This is kind of your old budget, but this is an example of what each parcel's budget looks like. Let me see if I can get my mouse. Okay, so you have, okay, it won't let me, I don't have a little thing. Okay, so up top where I was talking about earlier, you have your revenue, and that's going to be where your assessments come in. And you can see on this particular one, we just have a monthly assessment, and it kind of tells you multiplied by however many units are in that parcel. That's the annual parcel assessment. And then you have up there what you're going to be allocating to your reserves. Then right below that, you have your expenses. These are just your day-to-day operational expenses. I think I went through a list earlier, but now you can see the actual expenses, particularly well, this is for Archer's Meet. So these are all the expenses that they have on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Then we go to the reserves. You have your OER, and that's where it's required to have your 1/12. But before I get down to that, if you just look in for Archer's Meet, the expenditures, you know, they have a snow removal, which is no longer in there because that would come out of your contingency. But you have painting, erosion. If they need a tree program, that could go in there as well. And then you have your contingency. That contingency is 1/12. So if you look under the 2020 budget and you see 21,295, that's actually 1/12 of their total operating budget. So that's the amount that's required to be in there at all times. And I know you guys might have questions about this, so please write them down and we'll get to it at the end. We can pull this back up if we need to. And then below that is your MM&R, your major maintenance and replacement reserve. And again, this is through a reserve study. So this tells you, you know, what's going to be replaced, what year, and then you have your ending balance and MM&R. What we have on most of the budgets now is the minimum balance. And that right underneath where it says ending balance, they'll have a minimum or what's required by the reserve study, and it'll tell you what the reserve study is saying your balance should be, and then right above it is what your actual balance is. And they should be very close, very close. The budget procedure. All right, so around August 1st of each year, staff will get with the budget chair and normally either budget and chairman or just the budget chair to start projecting a 5-year and putting your draft budget together for the next year. Once that happens, then you'll take it back. Once we meet and put your draft budget together, usually it's just you and I will put that draft budget together. Once that's done, you will present it to your PAC for their review and recommendations and make any changes before it comes back to me. So in August, you'll get a draft budget. Usually in September, you will have emailed me back with any changes that need to be on it. And from there, I'll schedule a meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee with the liaison that's appointed to your parcel, and we'll all sit down and go over that draft budget and then make any changes there if need be. Once that, and so that kind of serves as the Budget and Finance Committee as well, because they're coming together. You've got your chair and you've got your liaison and anybody else that's going to attend from the Budget and Finance Committee. And then they will, again, make the recommendations or changes, or we just talk about it and it's left alone. And from there, it'll go to the Board of Directors in November for approval. Budget overruns, PAC must obtain Board of Approval in advance if you're going to overrun your total operating budget. Not a line item. You don't need approval to overrun a line item, but you do need approval to overrun the total operating budget, because that overrun is going to come from your OER. So you're required to get permission to use OER money that's not budgeted. So if you are tight on your budget, but something has to be done before the end of the year, and you know you're going to overspend your total operating expense, we need to go get board approval prior to that. Let's see, PAC, PAC, again, Board of Approval is needed if you're going to exceed your MM&R, or if something's not budgeted, then you just say board needs to approve it. If it's not budgeted, just needs to be approved. We can't spend any money that has not been budgeted prior to board approval. The budget monitoring, the budget coordinator will look at all expenditures and review all invoices and approve or give approval to proceed with payment for all invoices prior to them getting paid. You'll get a monthly financial sent from Donna Owens, the accountant in the office, and any supporting data. That's on a monthly basis. That's usually not sent out though until after the board has accepted those financials for that particular month. So in March, they're going to accept the February financials. As soon as the board of directors meeting is over, Donna will send all the budget coordinators a copy of the financials. You've got your income statement and you have your balance sheet and your statement of funds. Statement of activity funds. Fund activity report. Okay.
One thing to add into the budget monitoring as well is, I think we had a little bit of miscommunication in the office. We had a little bit of involvement from our budget coordinators in regards to spending plans, and we are really going to focus on that of getting our spending plans. We will probably spread it for the first time, and then we will send it to you because we've got all the historical data. But if you would prefer to do that, we can send it directly to you and you can work on that spending plan. And that's a new procedure as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as the year goes along.
Okay, now let's get into insurance. That's probably outside of landscape. That's probably the biggest, the second biggest expense out of your budget. For the 8 parcels that have this. If there is an insurance claim, the claim has to go through me. You can't call the insurance agent or the insurance company yourself because they're just going to put you right back to me. So if you have some type of loss in your home, storm comes through, or there's even just the water heater leaks or toilet leaks, something, any water damage, don't want to say fires, but let's not have that. But any claim of any type will have to come through me. And I will require you to send me the information regarding the claim, what was damaged, the date of loss, all your contact information, everything about that claim. It doesn't have to be detailed, but I want to know some specifics on the claim. And that's forwarded right to the agent. And from the agent, they will create a claim number and send it right to the insurance carrier to get that process started. Once we have the claim number, the adjuster will contact you directly. I'm pretty much out of the loop once I file that claim. The adjuster will meet with the homeowner. So they're going to contact you directly and go come over, see what's going on, do their adjusting thing that they do, and keep in touch with you. So it'll be between you and the adjuster there at that point. Now, the adjuster's not going to tell you what contractor you have to go to. You sign a contract with whatever contractor is of your choice. The contracts are between the homeowner and the contractor. So you make that decision. We don't tell you who you have to use to fix your home. If you have somebody that you use all the time, you'll contract with them. But you're going to have, once the adjuster does his, does his work, the contractor's, kind of going to have to be within that scope, or you might want to talk to your contractor. Once everything's taken care of and the adjustment's done and we've got the cost of your claim, the insurance company will write KCSA a check for the loss, for the cost of repairs. And that's because KCSA holds the insurance policy. We hold the master insurance policy. You're the insured. Then we have, from there, KCSA, once I get the check, I will write the homeowner a check request to send that exact amount right to you. And once you get that check, and the process usually takes, once we get it, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for you to get that check. But once you get that check, you're going to pay the contractor directly. KCSA does not pay the contractor. Okay, so we're finished with the insurance portion of that. And it's pretty straightforward. Just send me, I can walk you through everything once I know about the claim. So you're going to start with me always. Now we go into contracts for the parcel. The bylaws require all contracts to be approved by the board of directors and signed by the president and the treasurer. KCSA nor the parcel advisory committee can enter into any contracts, written or verbal, or make any obligation on behalf of the association. That's important. We don't want PAC members to go out there and tell somebody to do something or sign something for some work to be done, and it not go through staff or the board of directors, because that person that does that could be liable for the cost. That's important. Let's see. Contracts for contractors, we have an approved list of contractors that meet the insurance requirement that the board of directors has set. Or you can always have somebody that if you have a contractor in mind, you can send us their name and we'll reach out to have them fill out what's needed, as far as, we call it a vendor package. And it just has the information that's required as far as your W-9 and the what? Yeah, all the required insurance that the board of directors has set. Let's see. When we go out for solicitation and bids, PACs may work with staff to conduct to solicit the bid. Staff and the PAC should prepare RFPs for bids to include specs, materials, and time limitations. It's just, this is where it comes in, where we're required to go out for competitive bidding. All right, to obtain reasonable prices, services, and terms, KCSA shall competitively solicit bids for products and services which can be obtained from more than one supplier, contractor, service provider, unless otherwise directed by the board. So we've had a couple parcels come to us and say, well, we really like this contractor. They did great work for us last time, and we really want to use them again. And we're going to come to you and say, nope, we're required to solicit for that. We have other tree companies. We have other wood repair companies that we need to go out to. If we know there's other companies out there that provide the same service, then we're obligated to go out. If they're the only ones, then the board of directors would have to approve us using them again. But there's a lot of tree companies. There's a lot of handy contractors out there that do wood repair, painting, things like that. And you also, just to keep the contractor honest, you want to competitively bid it, because you might find that you really like this person, but there's another company that's going to come in, $800,000 less on some work. And how are you going to explain to your members that you wanted to use that person and not use somebody that's going to be $8,000 less? So we really, for due diligence, I think we need to competitively bid it. And if it comes back and you still want to use that, as long as you have justification to your members as to why you wanted to use that contractor, explain it to the board of directors, and they'll make their decision. once we have the contract in place, the PAC, whoever is in that position for the PAC, they will assist with site visits and oversight in the work in process. You guys are so valuable to us. We do not have the ability to go out there and follow every single contract that's each parcel has. So the PAC members, you know, we're leaning on you guys to do the day-to-day visits. We do occasional visits, but we can't do the day-to-day visits with 10 different parcels. Okay, so once we're done with all that and we get the invoice for the work to be done, once we receive the invoice, we will contact the appropriate PAC member, which is usually the budget person, always the budget person. And then it would be whoever else is doing that position. So if it's a landscape cost that came in, then it would be the budget person and the landscape person would get a copy of that invoice to give approval for payment. If it was for staining, then we would send it to the budget and the building maintenance person. We are net 30, so we have to get the turnaround time is pretty quick. Let's see, staff may approve payment to avoid late fees and other penalties. That does not happen very regularly. But let me do this real quick. But there has been a couple occasions where we've had to go ahead and make a payment to avoid any late fees or penalties. But again, that does not happen very often. And just so you know, I'm doing this piece, but Elia normally does all the invoices. She does all the invoices. So the email you'll get would be from Elia with contracts, putting RFPs together. She will work with the staff or the PAC. She would be the staff member to work with the PAC on putting the RFPs and soliciting for the bids. And again, with this communications with newsletter and mailings, she would be the one to get these mailings or even emails. We've been using the email system quite a bit. We don't do much mailings anymore. Just really the required mailings of the annual and semi-annual meetings. Okay, and so that email system is that constant contact tool that's referenced in here. And we probably send out at least 3 or 4 a week for the parcels. She will work with you to build a template, or you just send her the material and she'll put it into a template. Either way. But most importantly, we need to allow us at least 2 days. 2 days prior, we need at least 2 days to get that ready. When we're having to send out an email, we need at least 2 days. For mailings, we need at least 5 days to copy and forward all the newsletters when we're actually doing a mailing. We don't have to we don't need 5 days to do an email, but we do need the time to do the mailing, because once it comes in here, it's got to be looked over, then it's got to be copied and stuffed and stamped. The board meeting, the minutes, let's see. Yeah, they can be typed or handwritten, doesn't matter. The biggest thing is to get us in here, get it to us within 45 days of your meeting. And it doesn't say that on the sheet, but it does. It really needs to be forwarded to the board of directors so they know what's going on in each parcel. Yeah, I'm just gonna pass that because. All right, I'm gonna, oh, this is about to shut off. This is about to shut off.
Did you extend the time?
I can't. So, okay, so you want to go through financials real quick? I want to apologize, but as it did yesterday in the EPB meeting, my computer is wanting to shut down.
Your The computer?
If we get lost, please log back on.
Where'd it go? I don't see it. Okay. Okay, just real quickly, just to go over your financials, and those of you that are involved with the financial process of your PAC, you guys have my number, you have the office number, Donna's available. As I mentioned, the budget and finance are available as well. Just feel free to reach out to us with any questions at all. But basically what we send out, as you guys know, is a balance sheet, an income statement, which is what you're seeing now.
Host.
Huh?
Let me as host.
Hold on for me just a
Let
second.
me as host, it'll stay going. Okay.
All right, thank you. This is a basic income statement. It is a little bit old, but that basically shows your variances, your budget, your actuals for the month, as well as it shows you a cumulative year-to-date total as well. So that's basically, in a nutshell, I mean, the income statement basically shows your day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year activity of expenditures that should be reviewed. No, I can't. Can you go to the next one?
We're stuck.
You can't?
I can't, no, because I don't have it on here.
Okay, we're having just a little bit of technical, yeah, we're having problems. I gotta get this to you. You need this to put this in. Let's do this. I'm gonna share screen.
You would think we just did our first Zoom meeting today.
Okay, let's pull this up and then we're gonna share this. Okay, hold on just a minute.
Browse it. But you got
There it is. There it is. All right, so let's go down. We're almost there. All right, there you go.
Okay, sorry about that. The next statement is basically your fund activity. As Susan mentioned, you've got your OER, your MM&R on this document that you'll see that's distributed as well, just as your financials. It's a monthly report and also shows your annual budget as well as your budget remaining for those line items as well. So the reports are very easy to read that we've distributed. Again, if there's any questions or any comments, please feel free to reach out to me or Donna here in the office, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Okay. All right. So we're finished with our portion of the presentation that we need to do. So right now, what we're going to do is we're just going to open up the floor to get questions and answers. And what we'll do is, if you'll just raise your hand, we'll unmute you so that you can ask the question. And then I know Robert has had his hand up for the whole meeting. All right, Robert, give me just a second. What are we doing here? Why is it not giving me the controls?
It's up
I'm gonna stop sharing.
there. Yeah.
Okay, Robert, if you want to unmute yourself, you should be good to go.
Okay,
There you go.
all right, insurance question.
Okay.
What's the guideline basically for when a claim should be submitted for KCSA insurance versus a homeowner's insurance, say for storm damage?
Well, the deductible is 5,000 on each claim. If it's a storm damage situation, there's multiple claims. They all get pulled together to cover that $5,000, and like I said, the homeowners are responsible for that deductible. But anything above $5,000 is able to be reported. In my opinion, all of it ought to be reported to your insurance company, because in some situations, I've heard a few people have policies where their insurance carrier will reimburse them the deposit. So that's my suggestion on that. And one thing I will encourage, and just remember that every one of you and each of your PACs are responsible for that premium annually. So we really encourage you to really investigate what's happened. Kind of maybe a good idea that it's $5,000 or higher before any kind of a report or a claim is provided. Robert, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and they go to their own homeowners first. Is that what you just said?
No,
Both.
What he said, it really depends on what the claim is. But you have structure coverage through the KCSA. So if you have water damage from a windstorm, that a branch fell on your roof and you have a lot of water damage, you're definitely going to want to call us, but you're going to want to call your homeowners as well, because we have the $5,000 deductible. Your homeowners might be able to cover some of that deductible. So
Yeah.
you want to inform definitely your homeowners on all your claims, because they might have an endorsement on your policy for your homeowners that would cover the deductible for your master policy.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Great. Curtis, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I did. This is a carry-on question from that insurance claim. What happens if the insurance adjusters don't agree with what the contractor estimates are? How do we go about modifying that?
It's just going to be, I think what you would do is get your contractor and adjuster together to kind of hash that out. They're pretty, this policy is an awesome policy. I can tell you that now, after doing it for 20 years. You've got a very good master policy, and there's only maybe one or two times that that the adjuster didn't come in what the contractor wanted to charge. And it might have been because there was some underlying improvements that was not known, or the adjuster didn't realize that you couldn't get that same material to match, because you're not doing a full replacement, say countertop. You're not able to match what was on there before, so you're having to go to a different type or different quality of material in order to get it to match. Those things, your contractor and adjuster need to work together on those things.
And one thing to remember also is improvements that are made to the interior of your home should be reported to the office so that we have that information in your files if the unfortunate need for a claim does arise.
Any improvements that equal 1,000 or more need to come into the KCSA so we can keep it in your records that you did the improvement. Because if the adjuster comes and we don't have any record, they might not, especially if it was a total loss, they might not even realize that you've done improvements. Therefore, they're going to put back what was there at construction, not your improvement.
So if we have had significant interior work done, do you need us to submit the contractor's estimates and
Yes.
estimates on those? Okay.
They will reflect any improvement, but we want to have it on file here. So if it's just a matter of you going around your home and taking pictures, because I'm sure if it was done 5 years ago, you don't have all the paperwork, but pictures speak 1,000 words. So as long as we have pictures on file, we can show the adjuster that, yes, these repairs, these improvements were done, and then be able to see what the improvements were. I mean, we would want something, you know, a detailed list of, yes, we did the bathroom, we changed we put in marble floors, or we did this, and but we would also have a picture to reflect the dots.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to add in one thing real quick that that I failed to mention earlier. I talked about budget and finance when we were talking about the budgeting process and the liaisons that we have within the budget and finance for each of the parcels. We also have a board member is a liaison to each parcel as well. If you're not aware of who your liaison is, please reach out to us and we'll get that information to you. But that you've got not only budget and finance, but you also have a board member that's there to assist, to help out as much as possible in situations that you may need it. All right, Mindy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thanks very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is an EPB question. Thank you very much for the clarification that our role is comments and recommendations, not decisions. What decision what metrics should we use when we consider our comments and recommendations? It seems to me that it should be not simply my personal taste, but I'm left feeling a little rudderless about what kind of comments and recommendations I should be making.
Okay, so you're talking about applications, right? When you're sent applications from homeowners, you're Winsterfax, right?
Correct.
Okay, so so we have other homeowners in there that are wanting to do stuff. You know, it's hard not to respond as my opinion, you know. It's really hard for us not to give our opinion. But you should look at the overall picture when you're commenting. Do we want this precedent setting in here? Maybe you don't like the color and you can say, well, I'm not really fond of that color. But you know, if the rest of the PAC approves it, I'm okay with going with it. But it's hard not to put your opinion in there when you're commenting.
Okay, so what I've used so far is two frames of reference. One, safety, because some of the requests are, in my opinion, not safe.
Right.
And then the prevailing aesthetic, which is a little bit gray, but it seems to me, even if it's a new idea, if it fits within the prevailing aesthetic of our community, it feels like it's worth skewing towards yes.
Yeah, I think those are perfect. Yep. Definitely safety first, definitely. But then your second thought was, it could be precedent setting too. Do we want this? Does it fit within our community? Would we want to see this on 106 other homes or around 106 other homes? So
yeah, and that's the tough
part.
Because you know, the people on our PAC may have a certain design aesthetic, and so I don't know. I guess again, I just revert back to, does it fit within the prevailing aesthetic, and if so, it might be different, but it would still be acceptable.
Right. And any comments you get back, the EBB can they usually can determine which one is just a pet peeve, that you just don't like it because you don't like that stone, or, you know, versus what would be the majority. And what others would.
We have a lot of doors and pathway questions. So
right.
It's been hard to parse through what the right way to tilt is.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Paul, you should be able to unmute yourself.
He didn't have his hand up.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have a non-exciting contract question. Let's see here. As far as the contracts are for all the PACs, are they for maintenance or landscaping? Are they all under one particular company? Just seeing, or are they all, do each PAC have different contracts for different needs? And then then a second question would be, are the contracts for multiple years or the annual?
The answer to your first question is there are multiple contractors throughout. We do have a pretty consensus. I'll use lawn care as one. Savannah's landscaping is in multiple parcels. JD's lawn care is in multiple parcels as well. So there's really nothing that we tried a couple of years ago to kind of pool things together for cost savings, but the specifications, some are so much different than others and what the PAC requires. So it was a little more difficult to achieve that. And then the second time, really, most of them are 3-year contracts. A 1 year is always possible. And, you know, it's really recommended, especially if you're making a landscaping contractor change, whatever, no matter what the contractor is, on a 1 year that's potentially a reoccurring one. You know, 1 year is suggested for the first, and then a multi-year after you know that you're happy with that contractor.
Well, if you all have to approve them all, I certainly wouldn't want to do annual contracts all the time for everything.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
and I will say probably 95% of the reoccurring contracts are 3-year contracts.
That makes sense. And then last budget question is, what happens to leftover funds from either operating or MMR? They just go automatically into OE reserve funds, or
Yeah, once the audit is approved or completed and approved, those excess funds, and I think they've actually already been moved where the excess is at this time. We'll make adjustments after the audit, but that money is moved directly into OER.
Your MMR stays in MMR. It
Correct.
doesn't go anywhere. If you don't spend that, it just stays in the pot. You can't move that anywhere. It can't go to operating. It can't go to OER. But your operating expense, if you have money, a surplus left over at the end of the year, once the audit's finished, the surplus will go directly into your OER reserve.
so is that MMR money then rolled over to the next year, or what happens to that?
Well, it stays in the big
Stays there.
pot. You have a reserve study. If say you had to rebuild a mailbox, okay, one of the kiosks, and you didn't do it this year, but you probably needs to be done next year, then you can just move that money to the next year and we'll reflect that in the reserve study. So it stays in the big pot, but just because you spend it this year doesn't just give you the authority just to spend it next year. It has to be budgeted for next year as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with questions? I will, yeah. Let's see. Okay, Curtis, you ought to be able to unmute yourself.
I think there's others maybe in front of me, but this question comes up with the, I work as the assistant landscape coordinator at Moody's Run, but always the issue comes up with where's limited common property versus common property versus personal property. Those distinctions to me are still pretty vague. Does the map, and I don't have the handbook yet, but does the map or plat of our particular parcel specify this with pretty good accuracy as to where the responsibilities lie and where those lines lie?
It does. It's very clear. One thing that we have done over the years is, you know, when especially defining homeowner versus limited common, we'll come out and measure. It's not uncommon to see us out there with a tape measure running from the back corner of somebody's house just to verify exactly where limited common, where common runs in to that lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody with any questions, you should have the ability to raise your hand on the Zoom call if you have questions. I know a few people I've been fortunate to see that they've waved their hand and I've caught them, but if you do have any questions, just raise your hand in the Zoom chat area and we'll see your hand.
Don't you do that fine?
I can't do it because I'm the host.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I do have a couple board members that are present. I just wanted to check with Ron and Ed Connor that are with us. If either one of you have any questions or you want to add anything into us, let me unmute Mindy real quick and then I'll get back to Ron and Ed. Mindy, you should be able to unmute.
I did just. Two people have raised their hands physically, but maybe you can't see that. One is, let me see, Kathleen Fitzsimmons, and the other one is Stephen Ralph.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, there's no Kathleen Fitzsimmons. Oh, it's Kay. There we go. Kathleen, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you
Hi.
go.
Thank you so much, Mindy, for helping me out. When I clicked on the chat button, it said chat was disabled, so I couldn't raise my hand the other way. Which brings me to one of my questions is, can we receive at Zoom training as a group, like a PAC receive Zoom training? Because we had some difficulty yesterday conducting our meeting, the PAC meeting. And we like to look professional when we conduct these things. Is that possible?
Absolutely, but as you can see, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're more than happy to sit down with you folks.
We can all learn
Fantastic.
together. How
Yeah,
about
right,
that?
right.
Great. Then I have several questions. I hate to say
Nope.
this, but
Go right ahead.
will this presentation, the slide deck, be emailed to us? I didn't have it in my binder, so it was very helpful information to have.
Sure, we'll send that out.
Perfect. And let's see, you answered one of my questions in that we do receive financial packages from Donna monthly. I know they're a little bit later in the month because the board has to approve them. They don't send out a formal budget presentation, do they? Or are we to prepare a budget monthly as the budget representatives? Or just go present those financial statements as is?
Are you referring to reviewing the financials that we send you and
Yes.
discussing it at your PAC meeting?
Yes, I'd like to report those when I get them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you say, part of the, I don't say it's an issue, but the financials are normally done by the middle of the following month.
Right.
And then it goes to the board, Budget and Finance, and then the board for approval. So,
Yes.
so you're a little bit behind. We'll get them to you as quickly as we can once they're approved.
Oh, I think the timing has
Okay.
been on par with what I've experienced in
Great.
life, but and I do caution everyone at the meeting that they're a little bit behind because of the process anyway. So we will present those then. Now I noticed that on the Kings Mill website, you have a category called parcels, and the financial statements are posted there. Who does that? Just in case I'm supposed to do it.
We do that in-house. Once the minutes are approved, once the financials are approved by the board of directors at the board meeting, those are sent over to Charity, who handles our website, and she uploads all those on there for you guys.
Fantastic, thank you. I just didn't want to be slacking on something that I was
No,
supposed to
you're
do.
good.
Okay. Susan, you mentioned you're going to be completing those matrices this year. Will you be putting like little X's in the boxes that they apply to? Like whose responsibility a certain Yeah, okay,
Right.
great.
It'll have a list of what the item is, and then
Uh-huh.
you'll have it'll be checked either association or parcel or homeowner.
Okay, okay.
So it'll define it clearly, the items.
Okay, and I'm really nearing the end. The spending plans are new, and I thought I heard you say that you're going to use or you have used historical data to send them to us, which I've already shown those to the parcel, the PAC. And so I don't feel like the need that I need to reinvent your wheel because you have a better history of it than I do. Is that your thought as well, or?
That is correct, but we still want your feedback. We don't want you to think that we're doing it all.
Okay.
But we will, again, we've got the historical information, so we'll put it together and send it to you guys to review. I think it's much easier than you starting from scratch trying to figure it out.
Very much so.
Okay?
The financial statements, you mentioned that the backup material will be sent with them. Does that mean invoices that have been paid or emails? I've been, saving all my emails and trying to print those out to keep them together. But is that what you meant by the detail that would go with them?
Are you referring to the invoice approval process?
Well, anything that hits the budget, you said it would come, all the financial statements would come with a supporting detail is what I thought I heard. And I'm using an invoice as an example of something that may have hit an account. Or am I overreaching that I just?
Well, it's going to be two different processes on this.
Okay.
You have one is we get the invoice here and we will send it to the parcel for approval to pay that invoice.
Right.
Once it leaves Elias and my hands, then the accounting department, it'll be reflected on the income statement or reflected on the financials. Now, if we get an invoice at the towards the end of the month, it probably won't hit that financials till the next month.
Okay.
So if we get an invoice and we want to pay it at the end of February, or we get it and we code it for the 26th of February is when it was sent to accounting. It's not just because you got it in February doesn't mean it's going to be shown on the February financials. It probably won't hit till March because you've got to have time for it to go through the whole process to get paid, then put in the financials. So yeah, so because you sign off of it in 1 month doesn't mean it's going to show as a deduction for that particular month.
Kathleen,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Kathleen, one thing, it is possible though, we do, especially toward the end of the year, we accrue a lot of stuff back into that
Right.
At the end of the year. So it's possible if, when Donna goes through the invoices and she sees, okay, I got to accrue this because it's not going to be paid by April 5th, the end of the April financial. So we need to accrue it back into April. So those are things as well that we try to track.
Okay. Well, I will turn it over to Stephen then, Stephen Ralph.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, I just have a further question about the boundaries of the golf course. Is there a plat that shows what the exact boundaries are?
Your plat, yeah, the plat for your parcel will show golf course versus limited common.
The plat net doesn't, because down by 54, there's probably about 30 or 40 feet, I think, between us and the golf course. And that's probably common area, but it's just, on the plat, it's just marked as golf course. So I would like to know where the line is for the golf course, because then I can assume that anything in between is Kingsmill community property between
Right.
our
You
plat.
know what? I think, Stephen, you and I can get together and look at that because the plats do show what's common and what's homeowner, and then it shows the golf course. And we'll just have to, we can look at it together.
Okay.
How about that? Okay.
I do have another quick question is that we have some drainage problems here. Who do we contact, with KCSA to talk about drainage issues?
Public Works Committee? Yeah, we should talk about it in the Public Works Committee, because in part of their responsibility is to, kind of help the parcels, guide them with issues like that.
Okay.
And drainage is everywhere. Drainage problems is everywhere.
So who's the lead on the Public Works Committee that I could contact?
Well, you can send something through me and I can get you on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kimberly. Kimberly, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. So how many people there are on the EPB? How many comprise that
I
committee?
believe as of yesterday, we have 8 right now.
Okay, so I know that on the parcel committees, you just take our recommendations, but you're not bound to follow our recommendations necessarily. Can you tell me basically, as a percentage, what would you say? Do you generally follow the recommendations of the parcel committee?
We strongly, I don't really know how to put this. I mean, I think Ed would probably do better at this, but we take your recommendations to pride, okay? It doesn't mean that we always go with what the committee wants, but we do take that into account. We do.
Well, and so kind of on that note, as we all know, we don't have a large participation from the community attending the meetings. So I know you had said in one of your slides, you were talking about if there's a vote, that 10% of the owners had to be there for a quorum. I'm assuming that making these recommendations is not considered a vote.
No,
Correct. And that 10% you're referring to is for your annual meeting.
right, it's a quorum at an annual meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you had said something whenever there was voting going on. Okay. That, we just have a very small parcel committee. And so it's a big responsibility for us as the parcel committee members when we are making recommendations that can affect the whole community. But I guess that's the burden of the homeowners to be involved. Okay, I think, I'm sorry, I had one other question, which was at the very beginning, you were talking about supplementals and who can change those. And you gave River's Edge as an example that you were doing some restrictions on rentals. It appears that supplementals can have a major impact on us as homeowners. What is the guiding principle there that you couldn't come in and change? Say we bought this house as to rent at some point, and then you guys change that. What is the principle there?
Well, let me jump in. First off, we are not going to change anything. You as the homeowners of that parcel are the involved group. Okay. A meeting has to be called. A percentage is required. What we did with River's Edge is we asked River's Edge to do a straw poll to check with their PAC to see if they even have support. Because one thing to remember is the legal expense is going to be borne by the PAC, not by KCSA. So one thing to remember is if you don't feel that you have support enough to approve that, it's probably not real wise to spend money on legal expenses on something that you're not going to get approved. So we like to try to suggest that be done first, and then to make your official vote at that point. And then again, board of directors is involved as well, and voting to whether to proceed with that amendment or not, as long as it fits the standard in the community.
Okay, thank you very much. That's
Okay.
all.
Thank you. Okay. Hey, Vivian, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I was wondering, is design management going to be able to fuse when we need to do our curbs, the curbs that go into our parking areas and our driveways? It would seem a pity if they weren't done at the same time. When KCSA redoes the roads, it would seem plausible that we should be doing new curbs. I don't know what design management did with the old Miller Dotson about when we have to redo our curbs. It's just they're in a pretty bad state, some of them, and I know that you're responsible for some of it on the street, but as they come into our cul-de-sacs or our driveways, et cetera, and parking areas, that I believe they're our asset and that we would benefit from doing it when you are going to redo the roads.
Vivian, if I remember correctly, I think that was a topic of the curb and gutter, you know, when we were talking about it, and we wanted it all blended in at the same time the roads were done. But without seeing Ware Point's Miller Dotson report or our design management report, it's hard for me to say. We'll take a look at it and see. But I think I think you're absolutely correct. If they're needed.
Right. I appreciate it. Thank
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Ron Lynn, you can unmute yourself. Wanted to give you the opportunity to speak if you would like to.
Well, as a board member and as the treasurer of KCSA, I'd just like to thank all the volunteers that, in fact, that's the only way we're really successful is with homeowner involvement. And the PACs make up at least 1/3 of the community, and as well as the individual homeowners throughout the Kings Mill. But that's what really makes us work is the involvement of the homeowners and the feedback to the board. The other thing is, I know you've spent a lot of time on budgets and things of that nature, but our whole, as a treasurer, we just want to ensure the very best that we can, planning to have level expenditures, to have no surprises, and to manage these things in the most informed way we can going forward. We want people to live here without worrying about special assessments or unexpected expenses. And we only can do that by having as much transparency as possible, as much planning as possible, so that we can follow the 7 Ps, I guess. Prior proper planning prevents pretty poor performance. So that's really where we're about. And if you have questions, please bring them forward to the Budget and Finance Committee. We don't have all the answers, but we sure can help you with the questions. Thank you.
I will say, don't believe Ron when he says they don't have all the answers. I know Ron Lynn has all the answers. Ron, again, thank you for your time as well. Ron's served both on the PAC as well as the board for several years. Mr. Connor, I'm gonna open up for you. Okay, Ed, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Good job on the presentation. I think it was very informative. And I want to echo what Ron said. I've lived in many communities in the DC area and outside the DC area. And I've been in several communities that had HOAs. And I will say this is by far the most legally complicated structure of any HOA I've ever lived in. And so if you sometimes feel like, wow, I don't know what's going on, you're not alone. I think if you've ever seen a Rube Goldberg drawing, I think that's what Bush used as his master plan when he set up this legal structure. But anyway, like Ron said, the parcels are very critical. We've got a great staff and they do a lot of work, but they really, really depend on your help. And we really appreciate it because this thing just simply wouldn't work without all your involvement. And again, like Ron said, just stay on top of your issues and ask for help. We will definitely get you the help. Ilya does a great job. You got her, you've got Donna, call on your board liaison. Just don't let issues fester. Get the help you need when you need it. But again, thank you for all your participation.
Thank you, Ed. All right, anybody else with any questions? Don't see any. Well, if by some chance I'm missing you, possibly waving, or I don't see any hands raised in the Zoom room, but if you are, feel free just to give us a call at the office and we'll answer your question for you. I want to echo the same thing Ron and Ed both did as well, and Susan did early on, and just thank you guys for all that you do. It's a lot of work from the staff standpoint, but again, as was mentioned, without you guys, we wouldn't have the successful community that we have, and you all deserve a pat on the back for volunteering your time for a thankless job sometimes. So we greatly appreciate everything you guys do for us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Again, you've got numbers for the office. Feel free to give us a call and we will help out in any way we can. Okay, thank you guys again for your time.
Ron.
He's
Ron has
waving.
something.
He's
Yeah.
waving.
Oh,
Bye.
okay.